Hello and welcome to another edition of Lost Louisiana. I'm your host, Charlie Whinham. We are calling this program, What's in a Name? Throughout the state, there are many names of towns and cities that just left us wondering, how did they get their names? Towns like Zwolle, Tickfaw, Dry Prong, or Lecompte are just some of the towns we are highlighting on the map tonight. Our research included probing questions and uncovered some fun facts to the towns with those unique names. For example, is the town I'm in now, Bunkie, Louisiana, actually named after a monkey? You'll have to stay tuned to find out. Also, did you know one community is actually named after a racehorse? And that same town was highlighted in 1989 on The Tonight Show with Carson, and it became a TV classic. So get ready to take a ride through some of the more unique named towns across Lost Louisiana. Let's get things started with Bunkie, Louisiana. And how in the world did this town get its name? Some people will tell you it was named after a monkey. And as you'll find out, it's partially true. It all started back in the late 1800s with the Hayes family that settled this area. And the unusual name of the town still sparks interest when strangers hear the name for the first time. To the best of our knowledge, no other city in the world is named Bunkie. Just this town of roughly 4,000 in southern Avoyelles Parish. In fact, even the word Bunkie was made up by a 2-year-old over a century ago. And it all revolves around a toy monkey and a little girl by the name of Mackie Hayes. Lifetime resident Nancy Caruth is a direct descendant of Mackie and knows the tale of the Bunkie monkey very well.
My great uncle had this little girl that had a toy monkey, and she called it her Bunkie, and so that became her nickname. And so when the railroad got the property for their right-of-way, they gave the Hayeses the privilege of naming the city. So they named it after the little girl, Bunkie.
Bunkie is located in the heart of some of the best farmland in the South. And the hub of Bunkie is arguably the 100-year-old Bailey Hotel. Current owner Tommy McNabb saved this structure from the wrecking ball 6 years ago.
I hated history in high school, but now I really enjoy digging up historical tidbits about the hotel.
History like Huey Long once campaigning on the front porch of the hotel.
My dad used to do an imitation of Huey Long when Huey Long was on the steps campaigning. And would you like me to do it?
Try it, Dad. I'd love to hear it.
Well, he would step up and he'd say, "My friends, and you all my friends, I have a vision for Louisiana." He'd say, "I look out there in those cotton fields," and he said, "I see those horses and buggies." He said, "That's not my vision." He says, "My vision is I look out there and I see those John Deeres." And I can't do justice to it like my dad could, but anytime you're in the middle of a bunch of people, just jump up and say that. "My friends, and you all my friends." And you've done Huey Long.
Life from a front porch can be very relaxing. And from the rocking chairs of the Bailey Hotel, you get the sense that they do not monkey around when it comes to preserving the past. Just ask the town's mayor.
You know, we really do have a bunch of remarkable old buildings still intact, and there is some effort to restore some now, and some restoration taking place by an energetic bunch of ladies who started a push.
This community, like so many in Louisiana, was shaped by the railroads of the late 1800s. The Bunkie train station is another great example of recent restoration efforts. The depot was built in the early 1900s. Here, the days of the Texas and Pacific Railroad come back to life. The Bunkie Train Depot. Phyllis, this is a beautiful place.
It's a beautiful place and a real asset to our town. It was built in 1911. We received an iced tea grant about 5 years ago to restore it back to exactly like it was. They came in and used some of the same wood and did it exactly like it was back then.
Yeah, plenty of artifacts too.
Yes, yes. We had
What's
people.
This?
This was the way that the engineer and the people at the station would communicate.
Really?
Someone would stand on the end of this, by the railroad, and hold it out, and they'd come through and put his arm through it and take the note off of it.
My dad was telling me that the drummers got off the train, and I guess that's where the term drumming up business came from, because they were traveling salesmen. They'd get off here and they spend the night here and sell to the grocery stores, the farmers, and what have you.
Notes and drummers would evolve in Bunkie by the 1930s and 40s with the sounds of the big bands. And watch out, these were the days when Bunkie went funky. Now, you wouldn't know it by looking at present-day Bunkie, Louisiana, but back in the day, about 60 years ago or so, some of the most prominent Americans made their way through this town. Folks like George Patton, Howard Hughes, Cab Calloway, and Duke Ellington. What do they all have in common? Well, they all made it through this little cool jazz music and dance hall by the name of the Blue Moon. The Blue Moon was known throughout central Louisiana as the place for hot jazz, as well as a sizzling steak. When the United States prepared for World War II, thousands of soldiers were in the area for Army training. A $2 ticket got you inside to hear Duke Ellington into the wee hours of the night.
Everybody loved to go to the Blue Moon.
Sonny Harris's mom and dad opened the Blue Moon in 1936.
One young man was a prisoner of war, and when they asked him where he was from, he said, from Bunkie, Louisiana, and somebody in the back said, did you ever go to the Blue Moon? That was in Germany in World War II.
Over the years, Sonny Harris and his wife, Sybil, put together a priceless scrapbook from the Blue Moon days. And who do we have here?
Well, that's Cab Calloway, and that wasn't made at the Blue Moon, but it was a production picture.
Mm-hmm.
And Earl Hines, he was a top musician, a good drummer that played there. And I think Ella Fitzgerald was singing in the band when they were there.
Really?
And she's not in the advertisement, but she was his singer at that time.
That's incredible. You have a Hall of Fame of musicians that went through Bunkie, that went through the Blue Moon.
Well, the big bands, they were popular. I was there when Cab Calloway played, and that was the first big band that played at the Blue Moon, name band, and they had a big crowd, and my father had a little stage down in the front of the band stand, and that's where Cab Calloway stood and sang. He charged my father about $1,200 for a Saturday night, and the big bands that played there had usually been in New Orleans and were going back east or west or wherever they were stayed, and so that's the way we would get them.
The anti-gambling administration of Governor Robert Kennon in the 1950s marked the beginning of the Blue Moon's demise. It was converted into an antique store in 1958 before burning down in December of 1961. Do you miss the days? Do you miss the days of the Blue Moon?
Oh yeah, we miss. Sybil and I go out to dinner, and we're on the way home. We pass where it was, and I would say, well, Sybil, 60 years ago, I was really having a good time.
History is alive in Bunkie, either in the hearts and minds of people like Sonny Harris and Nancy Caruth, or in the structures of the train depot and the Bailey Hotel.
Having lived here all my life, it's always been home to me. I've never lived anywhere else, so.
Would you ever want to live anywhere else?
No, I really wouldn't. I like it right here.
If the name of Bunkie originates from a monkey, then surely Zwolle gets its name from its famous tamales. Maybe, maybe not. Zwolle, Louisiana is located just east of Toledo Bend in Sabine Parish. And I promise you, learning about Zwolle will be almost as big a treat as meeting its town historian, James Q. Salter. Zwolle, Louisiana, population about 1,800 people. And one of those residents is James Q. Salter. He moved here as a fourth grader and never left.
Zwolle has as rich and unique a heritage, I believe, as any town in the state. It's different.
Over the years, James served as a teacher and principal, and even wrote a book about his hometown called Zwolle, Louisiana, Our Story. And he serves as our resident expert. And from one of the city landmarks, the Zwolle Train Depot, there are volumes he can tell us about his quiet little town. Well, quiet most of the time.
When I wrote this book, they had an office for me on the other side of the depot, and the train would come by about I'll tell you, man, hold it. I'll tell you. About 30 feet from me. Then I'd get right back there. You can see why it was noisy. The town fixed up a nice office for me right over that old depot.
The Kansas City Southern Railroad has its say from time to time, and without it, Zwolle would never have existed. So what's in a name, and how did Zwolle get theirs? Well, some might think it has some kind of Spanish or Mexican roots because of the famous Zwolle tamales. No, but we'll talk about tamales in a little bit. The name actually goes back over 100 years, and it's Dutch. When the Kansas City Southern Railroad made its way through here, Zwolle was born. There's a traveling insurance salesman turned railroad magnate by the name of Arthur Edward Stillwell. He left his native Rochester, New York, and went west to build a railroad. By September 19, 1896, the railroad was built to Zwolle. Originally, the line was to go to Galveston, Texas, but Stillwell had a dream, which proved prophetic.
He had a premonition that Galveston would be destroyed by a tidal wave. He was a very forceful and charismatic individual. He went in on his board of directors and said, we're not going to Houston and Galveston. We're going to go right straight down through western Louisiana and harvest all that timber, the virgin timberlands.
Some of Stillwell's railroad investors were from Holland, including a man named John DeQueen. At least that's what the folks in the area back then called him.
A fellow by the name of John, J-A-N, John, D-E-G-O-E-I-J-E-N. We couldn't pronounce it that way, so everybody called it DeQueen, such as DeQueen, Arkansas, named after him. They fell in love with St. Joseph Catholic Church. They love this little place. They came back, they said, we're going to name it after our hometown, Zwolle, Holland. De Quincy, Louisiana, was named after a famous Dutch baron, De Quincy. De Ritter, that's a Dutch name. Nederland, Texas was established for the people to come over from Holland to grow rice. The Dutch influence was very prominent in the building of the Kansas City Southern Railroad.
Zwolle had plenty of influences that shaped the area even before gaining its name. This area served as a buffer zone between Spanish and French settlements back in the 1700s. The Native American influence goes even further and is arguably the most noticeable influence, the Zwolle tamale.
There's a lot of different tamales out on the market. In the business, we refer to them as Mexican tamales and Indian tamales, and we fit more on the Indian side.
Ginger and Bernie Box run the EB Tamale Company. This is kind of a Zwolle, Louisiana institution, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it was founded in 1981 by my father-in-law, E.B. Malmay, and been in operation ever since.
How do you make a tamale?
Oh, it's a fun process. First step is we're going to make some dough, and by doing that, we grind corn. This is cooked corn that's ready to be ground up for the dough. Bring it over and put it in a mixing bowl. Just going to add a little lard first. Yeah, we're Talking about the real thing, lard.
Then it's over to the Zwolle tamale making machine. How loud can it be when you're just making a tamale?
Oh, I don't know. It's about as wide as a log truck going down the road.
Well, let it rip.
Let her rip. The machine can basically run about 1,000 dozen per hour. We use the what we call the processed shucks, and they are ready to use. All we do is soak them in warm water to get them soft. We make between 3,000 and 4,000 dozen.
Yeah.
And every one of them is hand rolled in the shuck. These folks have been at it for quite a while, and they're real good at it. I can't really do what they do. My fingers, I'm all thumbs, as they say.
Cook the tamales in foil in these kettles for an hour or so, and you have the final product, the original Zwolle tamale.
About 80% of our business is wholesale to distributors, so we have a lot of grocery stores in Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Mississippi, some over in Alabama. But we also have a lot of retail customers come in. They'll buy them.
Zwolle tamales come mild or hot, similar to the town's history of the past 80 years. Back in the oil boom days, Zwolle had a reputation as a rough and tumble town. Back then, oil as well as the vast acreage of virgin timber fueled the economic engine, and the timber industry remains vital to the area. The town of Zwolle, known for its tamales, inhabited by Native Americans, settled by the Spanish and French, named by the Dutch, and player in the nation's industrial age. History rolls in this town, either by train or by tamale. Welcome back to Lost Louisiana. What's in a name? I'm your host, Charlie Whinham. Our travels take us next to Lecompte, Louisiana. Although it looks like Lecompte on the map, this Rapides Parish town is named after one of the biggest stars of racehorsing during his time. Before the likes of Secretariat and Seabiscuit, there was Lecompte, the racehorse that put his name on the map a century and a half ago. Lecompte, Louisiana is a one-horse town, and the folks could not be prouder. This town is named after a world-class racehorse back in the mid-1800s named Lecompte. There are no photographs of this chestnut colt, but there is a replica of this legendary animal inside the Johnson branch of the Rapides Parish Library. Historian Evelyn Carnell and Mayor Rosa Jones takes us on this historical ride.
Well, I think everybody knows about the horse in central Louisiana and maybe other places too. And it was really a thing that young people did in Lecompte and the surrounding area. They raced horses.
Mayor Rosa Jones is a retired school teacher, and the horse came up from time to time with her students.
The kids asked in history class one day, "Miss Jones, did you know how Lecompte got its name?" I said, "Yes, it got its name from a racehorse." "Well, why?" I said, "I don't know. There are many towns named after different things. There are towns named after frogs, crawfishes, and all of that." And they would laugh at me. I said, "But so happened, we were blessed to have a racehorse that came through this little town, and it made history."
Lecompte grew up in central Louisiana, owned by Thomas Jefferson Wells and sired by Boston, generally hailed as America's first great racehorse. Lecompte was part of racing history on April 5, 1853, at the Metairie Course in New Orleans. The colt won its first heat race of 1 mile in 1 minute 45 and a half seconds. Back in those days, horses could run as many as 4 heats in 1 day. The Daily Picayune declared it the quickest heat ever made by a 2-year-old, as well as the fastest mile ran in the United States. This horse ran in the biggest races of its day. Some 20 years before the first Kentucky Derby, Lecompte's audiences included some of the most prominent social and political figures, including President Millard Fillmore. The colt's racing prowess was so admired back home that the area known then as Smith's Landing was renamed Lecompte, Louisiana. There is very little evidence of this trailblazing colt by the name of Lecompte, but here's a very small piece of history. Locals around here tell me this is actually part of the racetrack of the Wells family where Lecompte ran and also other Louisiana thoroughbreds.
Sometimes approximately 150 years ago, horses ran here. The track is barely visible now. The drains were on each side, and you could see the curve on each end with the straightaway being here. And this is where Lecompte and other racehorses ran, and people from the bar came out here and enjoyed their races.
But if you hadn't noticed yet, the horse's name never included the letter P. But the letter, well, was accidentally added to the city back in 1882.
Well, so the story goes, they authorized a painter to paint the name on the depot, and he put a P in it. And when the town council met, since it was already up there, they decided to just let it be that way.
Just let it go.
Let it go.
The letter P can now stand for Lecompte's other famous commodity, pie. All kinds of pie. Coconut cream, cherry, pecan, chocolate cream pie. Lee's Lunchroom serves as the centerpiece of the town's claim as the pie capital of Louisiana. The restaurant has been in Toby Traylor's family for 77 years, started by his grandfather, Lee Johnson. Your grandfather was quite a character.
Yes, he was. He absolutely was. People would come into the restaurant all the time, and the first thing that they heard when they walked through the door was his voice. And normally, when they came through the door, he would holler out, "Well, you're in the right church, and I'm the preacher."
The biggest surprise, I mean, there's a very short list of people from Louisiana that have been on the Tonight Show. One of those people happened to be your grandfather. How did that happen?
Well, they had a scout that came to New Orleans, and the scout was asking people, well, who could we talk to that would be a Louisiana icon, somebody that's a big character that would fit for the Tonight Show.
And the rest is Lecompte television history, made on Thanksgiving week, 1989.
You can see it on the computer. You can go to our website, www.leeslunchroom.com, and look in our family photos section, and it's on there.
Let's take a look.
Okay.
Okay, now we're about to leave this gentleman. We read about this gentleman in a newspaper article that describes him as kind of a local legend. He's been in the restaurant business since 1928. That's the year he opened his first lunchroom. We thought you might like to meet him. He's from Lecompte, Louisiana. Would you welcome Lee Johnson? Lee? Hi, Lee. How are you?
Hello, Johnny.
Good to see you. Sit down. Have a seat.
I declare.
I declare.
Which one of them wives did you eat dinner with today?
Which one?
As the story goes, as I know it, he stayed on longer than any unknown guest for the Tonight Show. He stayed on through 3 commercial breaks.
Come on.
He did. He sure did. And he was very proud of being on the Tonight Show.
Lee held court with the king of late night for 11 minutes.
I wanted to feed you a little bit.
Yeah.
So I brought you that pecan pie.
Is that what this is?
Yeah.
Is that how we pronounce it?
Pecan
Would you call this a pecan pie?
Well, you know, it's...
Is that like a pecan pie?
Well, that's what the northern people call it.
Oh, let's talk about your restaurant. It's Lee's Lunchroom.
That's right.
1928, first open.
Yeah, that's right.
What do you have on the menu outside of pecan pie?
Menu? We don't have no menu.
No menu.
No, that takes them too long to make up their mind what they want. But if they don't eat what I put on that plate, I don't want them in there no way. See?
Well, you're a fine gentleman, and it's nice to meet you. And
Well,
if I get down Louisiana way, can I drop in and have a bite to eat at your place?
You can come and stay all night if you want to.
Just okay.
The people that work for you. Tell me about that.
The people that work for us, we have people that literally raised me in this restaurant. I'm 33 years old. There's a lady that's been here since 1950 when we came to this location in Lecompte. We also have a couple of waitresses that have been here for 20 years. We have a cashier that's been here since before I was born. So we have some long-time employees at the restaurant, and that's something that we're very proud of, and our customers notice that.
You like pies?
Oh, do I like pies?
Do you like
My
pies?
favorite one, oh my God, coconut cream. And if you want to eat a good, delicious pie, visit Lee's Restaurant on Highway 71 and get you a pie.
So the pie's got ahead of the horse as
Yeah.
far as what's being famous around this
That's
area.
all right. The horse is on top and Lee's comes second. That's
Photo,
right.
A photo finish.
Say what?
A photo finish. 1 and 2, neck and neck. Photo
That's
finish.
right. Exactly, exactly. Yeah, we're blessed though. We're really blessed.
By the way, the Lecompte Branch Library, which is behind me, bears the name of Lee Johnson's wife. It is known as the Georgia Johnson Branch Library. If you want to see Lee Johnson's appearance on The Tonight Show in its entirety, you can go to the website at www.leeslunchroom.com and click on the photo gallery. Well, we next travel to a town even Johnny Carson would be careful about asking too many questions at first. It's Dry Prong. This little community on the edge of the Kisatchie National Forest started along a small creek. There's one problem with the creek. It had a tendency to dry up during the summertime. Dry Prong, Louisiana is a small village located just off of Highway 167 in the middle of Grant Parish. But Dry Prong did not always exist here. It actually began about 2 miles away. For that bit of history, we head into the forest with longtime resident and former mayor Glenn Maxwell. So Glenn, this is the original town of Dry Prong.
We're standing right in the original. You can't get any more dry prong than this because we're standing right on top of what was the actual mill, grist mill, that was the foundation of this community.
How did Dry Prong get its name?
Dry Prong got its name when some people came in here, I guess before the turn of the 20th century, and they were looking for a place to actually put a mill. And back in those days, everybody lived on creeks and knew where the creeks were. Well, this little creek here was actually a prong off of Big Creek, and it was called the Dry Prong because in the summertime it wouldn't get completely dry, but it would go down to where it really wasn't usable for people in those days for any kind of industry.
Glenn says this is part of what used to be called Hannigan's Mill, and it was deliberately built on this dry prong because a foundation to the mill could be built in the summertime. What we're walking over is part of the old mill?
Actually, we're walking over the actual foundation of the mill.
Really?
If we don't fall off of this log here, if I do, I'll fall right in the middle of the mill. But right here where my stick is at, that is an actual timber of the mill. And it's just as solid today as it was the day that it was put in. I'm going to get off this log before I fall off of it.
Good luck with that, and now I'll try it my best as well. It's a slippery piece of wood here, Glenn.
That it is.
How large of a mill are we talking about?
Actually, these mills were not that big. You see them in the magazines and old history books and whatnot, and you see these massive structures. But that wasn't the case. There were a lot of mills up here on these little creeks. Every little community pretty much had one of some sort. So as far as its physical size, it wasn't that big. I would imagine a water wheel was probably 10 foot high, something like that.
Just up about 20 feet from the creek, the mill maker created a man-made pond to power the water wheel.
So what he did, he came in, as you can see, the remnants of the old dam right through here.
We're basically in what used to be the pond, huh?
We're actually standing in the old pond. And of course, when you look out across there, you can tell from all the cypress trees that this was some type of a very wet area. You know, as the water went down during the course of the day, if it got too low at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they just shut things down, went home, and waited till the next morning and came back and started to work again.
And these mills were multi-purpose mills?
Yes, very much so.
What types of uses?
They were used for, they'd have a sawmill used for them, a grist mill, a syrup mill. They could go in and change the equipment that they needed.
Long before Hannigan's Mill, this area was inhabited by Native Americans.
We're just touching the surface on the people here in Dry Prong because out of an area this part of the Dry Prong community we brought artifacts out of there that dated back to really the beginning of recorded history. And I had them dated by the state archaeologist, the federal archaeologist, and Dr. Gregory at Northwestern State University. So when the people came in, they came in to where the Indians were already living. Of course, you know the story of the Indians. They moved them out in 1890, 1900 back to Oklahoma, so they virtually disappeared overnight.
Ironically, so did the residents of Dry Prong about 50 years later. Due to World War II, this area became an enormous training facility for the Army that took up tens of thousands of acres. Glenn, you grew up in these hills.
Yeah, I've been here all my life.
Has it always looked like this? These beautiful pine trees?
No, in the early days, it was nothing but sage-grass, blackjack oaks, scrub oaks. This looked like a World War I bombed-out battlefield.
In fact, you still need to watch your step throughout the pines. Signs still warn of unexploded shells in some areas. Glenn, inside the Kisatchie National Forest is what? What is this?
Well, this is an old bunker left over from World War II. This was, we're in the middle of one of the ranges out here where they were using live ammunition. Primarily on this particular range, it was a lot of small arms. And what we have right here is a storage area for a little train that pulled targets around a range up here. That targets stuck up above the range, and the men with the soldiers with the rifles or M1s or machine guns, carbines and whatnot could fire on those targets, and it helped them learn how to shoot a moving target. And there's still up there remnants of the old foxholes where the men would crawl by and live explosives would be going off beside them so that they would get the feel of what war was all about.
Back in the current village of Dry Prong, there is another remnant of the war, the Garlington Memorial Gymnasium. It was originally built south of Alexandria in Camp Claiborne. After the war, it was taken down board by board and rebuilt in Dry Prong, some 50 miles away, and served as the town's high school gym. By the time the L&A Railroad made its way through town in 1906, Dry Prong's original site moved to its current location.
You see right here?
But whether you talk about Dry Prong of the present or the past, some things don't seem to change.
There was probably 150 people, 125 people that lived around here, but all the social activities and whatnot, everything took place around this mill.
So thanks to the efforts of people like Glenn Maxwell, our time travel guide, folks in this area can appreciate the many lives of Dry Prong. Not too far away from Southeastern Louisiana University in Hammond is Tickfaw. G.W. Neeson was one of the first white settlers there and has left his mark for many generations. In fact, some of his kin still live the life more resembling their grandfather's time than that of today. And in some parts of this community, all you see are signs of a very cherished past. Tickfaw, Louisiana is located in the southern portion of Tangipahoa Parish. The name Tickfaw originated from the Indians, meaning rest among the pines. At least that's how third-generation Tickfaw area resident Sue Hamilton recalls.
From what we understand, the railroad was putting in the railroad track down through this area, and so every 10 miles they were putting a milestone, and putting in a station. And they named all these stations Indian names. And so Tickfaw, it means rest among the pines.
Sue is a good source of local history, as is her burly big brother Jim Jenkins. Back in the late 1800s, Sue and Jim's grandfather and grandmother helped shape Tickfaw. George Wilbur Neeson moved into the area in 1897 and would later marry Cornelia a few years later. This unlikely pair of a 6'6" man and a 5'3" woman was key to Tickfaw's early days. George opened up the general store, which would employ up to 28 people during its heyday. GW would also become Tickfaw's first postmaster, a position he would hold for 35 years.
Well, I've heard a lot of tales about him, and I have inherited a lot of his characteristics. Somebody comes along and says, let's go hunting, to me, I drop whatever I'm doing and I'm on my way. He was that way.
Across the street from the general store stood a beautiful two-story structure that would become home base to the Whinham family for generations. Now, this beautiful Victorian home was built in the early 1900s by three men, including Tickfaw's first postmaster, George Whinham. Now, the story goes it took these three men 3 years to build what would easily become Tickfaw's centerpiece home.
We had lots of fun there. We had lots of parties, and my mother and Daddy both loved to have people. They were people, friendly. They loved to have people come in.
In fact, the home still entertains guests. Back in 1995, the home was restored by Rosalind and Donald Cimino and Rose Lowenthal. After 2 years of renovations, it opened in 1997 as the G.W. Whinham House Bed and Breakfast. The home is listed on the National Register of Historical Places, and the Whinham home will remain a cornerstone to Tickfaw for future generations. Meanwhile, Brother Jim feels pretty good at his home just down the road. Time stands still here with an array of old farm equipment that still works, and around here, the progress of the 21st century is no match to Jim's sugar mill and blacksmith shop.
Okay, this is a cane mill that we use to squeeze the sugar cane. I've already got some cane there for about a week and a half from now. We'll be squeezing and making syrup.
Okay.
Run it over into a big pan and then cook it for 4 or 5 hours.
And you also have a blacksmith shop.
Yeah.
How about you showing it to me?
Got tongs and hammer here in my hand. Blacksmith shop's right out here. That's a coal fire, soft coal, bituminous coal, and they blow air into it, what this blower does, to make it burn fast.
Jim forges architectural hardware, things like door latches and ornamental gating. In fact, some of his work can be seen at the Cabildo in New Orleans. And in this quick show and tell, he's going to turn this metal rod into an ornamental leaf. I love it. This family has left its mark in many other ways. The Methodist Church is named after G.W. Whinham. That's fitting, since the first services were held under the tree of the G.W. Whinham house a century ago. And with a long line of teachers in the family, the elementary school was named after longtime educator Lucille. So under the canopy of the tall, restful pines, there is a family that has forged a proud legacy in Tickfaw. It is tough as nails. It is also warm and inviting as Grandma's feather bed. G.W. Whinham also helped organize Hammond Junior College, and that is now Southeastern Louisiana University. It's also located just 5 minutes away from the Whinham house. Well, that does it for this edition of Lost Louisiana, What's in a Name? From a Bunkie monkey to a Zwolle tamale, I hope you've enjoyed the ride. And like the racehorse Lecompte, we have hit the finish line. Hope to see you again for another edition of Lost Louisiana. Before I go home, I'm definitely taking home some pies. I'm gonna get a chocolate cream pie, that's my favorite. Oh, V said he likes apple pie. Coconut cream pie for Kevin. Pecan pie for Miss Peggy, I know she likes that. Who else? Oh yeah, I got a list, let's see. Todd and Keith, cherry pie. Dad likes blueberry. Stevie and Willie want peach. Julie and Ty get lemon pie. Tom and Jan pecan. Strawberry pie for Mom. Aunt Madeline and Uncle Jack, they like apple pie, I know that. Dave and Jenny get sweet potato pie. Hey everybody, here's Charlie.